to your full moon reading for the upcoming Pisces full moon that we have on the 2nd of September. So an interesting full moon in many respects. This one is in water and earth sign, so it should jive with your energy very nicely, being an earth sign. Its overall energy is quite good, actually. It's likely to be a very nice mixture of sort of intuition and imagination on one hand, and then a kind of grounding and manifesting it and logical energy on the other, or rather a sort of a sensible energy, being able to use your senses and your sense of your sense perception as a way to ground any intuitive hits that you get now. So anyway, I'm doing a slightly different reading today. What I'm doing is I'm still waiting for my cards to come back from the printers. So what I'm going to do is, instead of the usual geomancy reading, I'm still going to use the astrological houses, but I'm going to use these cards, the solar and lunar deck, which forms part of the Illuminated playing card series. And I'm going to use the lunar deck to populate the lower half of the chart, which is bisect, is associated with the moon anyway. This is the area of the private, the personal domain. And then I'm going to use the solar cards for the upper half, the diurnal half of the chart, which is essentially about the social and the public domain. And then after that, I'm going to pull an advice card from the Universe Has Your Back deck by Gabby Bernstein. So this has got a lovely full moon emblem on it, which I think is fitting. And finally, I'm going to pull a few trinkets from the Magpie Oracle, which was created by a friend of mine, Carrie Paris, and is a fun way of bringing some of the Lenormand symbols into the mix. So, you know, a little bit of this and that. So let's see how it goes. Tell me later in the comments if you've enjoyed it. And we'll kind of go from there. Okay, so I can see that right away this reading is not going to be for every Capricorn. It's definitely quite a specific message, perhaps for a small group of you. And I mean, do remember that these readings are general, so they're not going to resonate with everybody, and that's as it should be. But you know, they're a kind of a good general indication of where the energy of a particular zodiac sign is at one point in time, which in this case is the 2 weeks of that waning moon cycle. So what I'm picking up from this reading is that we've got somebody here who is feeling a little bit blocked and has a lot of doubts and fears that they are processing at the moment. And I think that this has to do with disappointments in a relationship. Something hasn't worked out. You know, if we look here in the 5th house, we've got the Ace of Cups upside down. And then in the 7th house of one-to-one relationship, significant others, we've got the 2 of Wands. And we can see there's fire between these two people. So this is kind of a heated discussion or a debate. And this energy of kind of to and fro is mimicked several times, actually. We've got the Jack of Clubs, which is the Knight of Wands here. And then we've also got the 2 of Swords energy here in the position of the Psyche. And on top of that, we've got the Chariot card here in the 11th house of friendship. So that's quite a lot of dual energy, of this kind of going back and forth between different positions, between different opinions, between different points of, or sort of experiences, you know, past and present, your experience, my experience, that type of thing, which is, you know, it's part of the nature of duality, and that is a core feature of the 3rd dimension. And what I quite like, I must say, I've been listening a lot to Matthias de Stefano, and you know, I quite like his very logical delineation of the cosmology of all the different dimensions, because it fits very well with my own kind of area of interest, which is the cosmology of astrology. And one of the things he says is that, you know, in the third dimension, you can't get rid of duality or polarity. And in fact, you know, astrology and Greek philosophy, which it's based on, kind of Neoplatonic philosophy, says the same thing, that you need the sort of the all to divide into two poles, and from there you've got the positive and negative energy that allows you to then create that third thing, because it's the charge that moves between those two poles that allows the energy to generate in order to create something else. And I think that's what's actually going on for you in this reading. It's interesting, we've got a 3 here. We've got the 3 of Pentacles, the 3 of Diamonds in your 6th house of work. And so what I'm kind of feeling is that there's an internal process going on where, and look, we've got the 3 of Cups here as well, the 3 of Hearts in your 9th house. So I think that what's happening is that you are moving within yourself from a position of feeling sort of conflict, or feeling very polarized within yourself, perhaps also as a result of experiences with other people, disappointments, perhaps people who've triggered you. And here I think it's particularly romantic relationships that may have triggered you, because you've got this blocked, this sort of split energy in the 12th house of the psyche. You can see the chap has got the hands crossed over his heart, and he's got a blindfold on. So he's finding it difficult to sort of find the kind of middle way between these two extremes. And what I'm kind of feeling is that perhaps due to a disappointment or some kind of heartbreak, it's triggered you, and as a result you're feeling quite ambivalent and not sure of how to move forward. We've got this, you know, as I say, we've got this Knight of Wands energy here in the 2nd house, which can be about self-esteem and self-worth, and it tends to be quite ambivalent. It's quite sort of in-out kind of energy. So there's a sense of sort of moving backwards and forwards between two positions, or two, should I do this, should I do that? You know, was this person right? Am I right? Should I have let them in, or should I have perhaps just sort of stayed self-contained? And the reason that I'm saying that is because we've got the Hermit here in your 8th house of intimacy. It's very closely linked to the 7th house of partnerships, and it's what we share with others. So this can be monetary, can be material, but it can also be psychological or emotional. So it can be you know, opening up to others. And here there's a sense of this mollusk kind of going deep into his shell and kind of closing himself off, becoming quite self-contained. You know, the hermit retreats from the world in order to find enlightenment. And I think that that's what's happened, is that there's been some kind of disappointment, a relationship kind of never got off the ground, and it led to quite a lot of internal conflict, which I think in turn led to feeling conflicted towards other people, possibly disagreements or arguments. And this has also led to a kind of a backwards and forwards when it comes to self-esteem, and it possibly also had an impact in turn on financial resources, because these two things are very closely linked. Emotions are they're the energy that actually activates our intentions. You know, when we set affirmations, when we want to manifest, it's the energy of the emotions that we need to attach to those intentions in order for them to get the energy to actually start to kind of lift off. But you know, yes, I mean, it of course it's not that simple, because we are also wired differently. And I think you know, I'm kind of getting into human design quite a lot, and it really explains the difference. It explains so well why some people find it so easy to manifest and other people don't, and why they have to wait for certain time periods, for certain centers of willpower and so on, to switch on and off. And this is where the, you know, the planetary transits really kind of come into their own. So what I'm kind of feeling, Capricorn, to cut a long story short, is that at this full moon, you're going to become aware of perhaps where you have felt very conflicted or polarized. And of course, a full moon is, as I was saying, it's about these two polarities. But then in the middle is the Earth. And I think what you're being asked to do with these threes that we got here in the 9th house and the 6th house is to find the middle way, but the sort of the path down the middle that incorporates both. You know, this is the midpoint in astrology. This is about midpoints. So we're taking the two extremes of the sun and the moon, and we are trying to find a middle way between those two things. And I think that will, rather than sort of going, okay, well, I'm going to sort of cut this out, you know, like the hermit is sort of doing, retreating into a sort of a form of self-protection. Same with the psyche. There's this blocking. I'm not going to let anyone in because if I do, they hurt me. So perhaps an alternative viewpoint, which seems to be the message coming through in this reading, is to try and find a way to take both and then incorporate a third thing, which then balances the other two things out. So, you know, if we look, for example, at even the Chariot, I mean, the Chariot is, it's an interesting card, actually, because, you know, in the Rider-Waite, or in most decks, you see the two horses, the black and the white horses, which I think are so wonderfully representative of this lunar and solar energy, of our kind of, our emotions and our unconscious on one side, and our conscious mind and our intellect on the other. And but there's a third thing in the middle. There's the charioteer who's kind of driving the vehicle forward, and I think it's such a wonderful metaphor for the Merkaba, for the vehicle, in which, you know, the sort of the soul's vehicle, which is, you know, traditionally, certainly in astrology, it has three levels to it. You know, there's kind of spirit, there's soul, which is a mixture, and then there is body, which is, you know, the most dense. It's not bad, it's just the most dense, and soul sits in between. So I think what you're being sort of potentially asked to do, and I think this may be reflected to you in your environment through things like friends or kind of group get-togethers or forums or even social media, you know, the posts that kind of happen to flash up on your feed, that potentially what you're going to see is that the way out of this situation is actually to try and find that middle way, that way to sort of marry pleasure and pain, to sort of realize that we need those two extremes, A, to differentiate between the two experiences, or everything would just be this flat line of like mono experience, and then also to see the value in both, to see sometimes what we learn from both experiences, and then can use to, you know, to feel growth, and then to sort of to move forward in a more integrated and whole kind of way. So getting to the planets themselves, at this full moon we've got the sun in Virgo and we've got the moon in Pisces. So for you, that is sort of 3rd and 9th houses, and these are the two houses associated with communication, with perception, with knowledge sort of on one hand, and kind of the intellect, you know, on the one hand, so logic, and then kind of wisdom, learned experience, and sometimes judgment on the other. You know, this can be associated with social ethics, you know, that the sort of the social dimension of ethical things. So the law, religion, which is very often quite sort of, I don't want to say judgmental, but it can be, which are there, or are kind of tools to help us distinguish between what socially we consider acceptable and what we consider to be unacceptable, you know, kind of right and wrong from that perspective, in order to sort of keep order in society. And so these are the two extremes that you're being asked to balance. Now, it's so interesting. If we look at the cards for each, here for Pisces, we've got the lovely Queen of Diamonds, or the Queen of Pentacles. And this is lovely earth energy. So it sort of jibes very nicely with your energy, Capricorn. So this is about that wonderful earthy energy that I was talking about, you know, earlier when I was talking about Mother Earth. It's you're really being asked to kind of almost sort of revel in your senses, to become very tactile, to focus on what feels nurturing and nourishing at the, sort of right now, as opposed to, say, you know, feeling very conflicted, very in your mind, in your head. This is swords energy, so it's air. To come into your body fully, and to sort of from there to sort of be grounded in presence, you know, similar to what Eckhart Tolle teaches us to do, you know, to sort of come fully into the body, and from there become aware of being, kind of presence, as opposed to thinking. So being, just being, not overthinking right now. And then on the other hand, we've got the Sun in Virgo, which is being signified by the Three of Cups. And I think that this is kind of talking about what we learn from others, you know, that Virgo is very good at making discerning judgments. It's also very helpful. So it's possible that you might have friends who are help you to sort of get not higher perspectives, but just see things from perhaps from different points of view, from a different perspective, perhaps from a slightly more detached perspective emotionally, and you know, an elevated perspective spiritually, and sort of finding ways, kind of philosophical ways almost, to do what I was saying, to sort of to reunite the parts of yourself that at the moment are a little bit split. So to kind of come back, to bring all these parts together again so that they can all work in harmony. So that's kind of the overall message. And, you know, as I say, this is going to be a wonderful moon in terms of combining intuition, the intuitive and very all-embracing energy of Pisces. You know, Pisces is very compassionate and very non-judgmental, actually. Pisces is the sign associated with unconditional love and with you know, with the all, as opposed to the one. You know, I think Pisces and Aries are so good at showing that those different states of being that are sort of necessary for the different kind of dimensions. You know, the Pisces is the all, and Aries is the individual. So it's the part, and both are necessary. You know, sort of coming into a body requires you to split off from the whole in order to be a sort of an individual, to have an individual identity. And in that sense, the ego, you know, is healthy. It helps. It's a vehicle for navigating the 3D world, in which we need to, you know, we see things through comparison. We learn through comparison. I'm this, that person is that. This is me, that's the other person. So there's a sort of a sense of differentiation kind of happening. I think the problem comes in when we start to make judgments about that, when we say, I'm right, that person's wrong, or vice versa. And I think this is what you are kind of contemplating at this time, is sort of letting go perhaps of the kind of the judgment, which a Virgo can be a little bit judgy. So there is a need to be discerning, to use it for clarity, because Pisces can be a little bit kind of foggy. So just to sort of get edges to things, so you can tell one thing from another, but not to then kind of go, oh, well, this person is bad and this person is good, sort of thing. Or, you know, this part of me is bad, that part of me is good. And this is so often reflected to us in society. We tend to, you know, to do this as societies on the whole. So there are a couple of wonderful aspects that are happening between the luminaries and the other planets, which I think will key into the energy of this full moon. So the first is two lovely aspects to Uranus in Taurus. Now, for you, Taurus sits here in your 5th house, and it's interesting because Uranus is currently retrograde. So the way that it tends to work is it tends to force us to look more internally, to make internal shifts, so we can have wonderful realizations, aha moments, break through blocks, so sort of paradigm shifts, or it can make us look back at the past and perhaps see things a little bit differently, integrate information. Sometimes people or situations from the past can come back so that we can have another look at them, and that's what I feel potentially could be happening here. This is the 5th house of creativity, children, and also new love relationships. So with this Ace of Cups in reverse, I kind of feel as though you'll get an opportunity, you know, to sort of flip things around, to take this cup that's been spilt and actually flip it on its head and see the value in the experience and the experiences that you've had, which might not have necessarily been pleasant, but they may have, you know, been what you needed to learn about a certain experience. So I don't think that everything is lost. I think it's kind of how we choose to view the experience, what we take from it, that makes all the difference. So that's the one aspect. And the other one is that Mercury, which is currently also in Virgo, where it is exalted, Mercury will be making a series of trines both before and after the moon, this full moon, so just before and just after, between the 29th of August and about the 3rd of September. We'll make a series of trines to those outer planets which are currently in your sign, so here in Capricorn. This is Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto, and of course Saturn is your planetary ruler, so this is very particular energy that you will feel quite strongly, I think. And so here I think that with trine energy, you're being asked with Mercury to look at situations from a different perspective, and that there could be some real insights and aha moments and paradigm shifts as a result of this shift in perspective, as well as, you know, potentially also through dialogue. And this could be also why we've got the Two of Wands here. It could be a need to sort of to have dialogue, not necessarily with the person who, you know, kind of caused you to sort of retreat, although it could be, but also just with others, because very often it's through dialogue. You know, this is something that comes through so strongly in the Platonic tradition. It's all about kind of dialogues between teacher and student. This is a good way to learn. So I do think that you're being encouraged to sort of have some dialogues, even if there are internal dialogues, perhaps with your spirit guides too, because the 9th can be about spirit guides, and with other people, because the 3rd house is also about having conversations with nearest and dearest. So very often this is people who live either in our immediate vicinity, like neighbors, or people that we share a home with, or people we encounter on an everyday basis, and as well as close relatives, like, you know, first cousins, siblings, that kind of thing. So to have some dialogue, because this will help to sort of bring you out of this space, this space of kind of addiction, attachment, just feeling stuck. That's what I'm getting from this Two of Swords here, and help to bring in a little bit of momentum again. Especially that trine to Pluto. Pluto's very good at sort of getting us out of a stuck position and sort of moving forward again. It brings that kind of transformative energy, and that's what I think is possible for you at this full moon and within the 2 weeks that follow. So quite a deep reading. I think let's get an overall piece of advice for you from Spirit. Okay. Let's see. Oh, wow. Oh, how beautiful. I let go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. And I think this is so much about what this Ace of Cups is about. You know, Uranus is so good at making us see things from a fresh perspective, that novel perspective. And that can sometimes be a kind of a retake, a new take on an old situation. And with so much, you know, of your energy and your planets retrograde at the moment, I think that's really what you're being asked to do. That is the gem in this particular situation. So, I mean, absolutely beautiful. Right, let's get some trinkets. So first one for the moon. Interesting. So we've got Mars, the symbol for the masculine energy. So interesting that it's coming out with such a feminine planet and sign. So maybe again is saying, you know, I need to balance that energy, and also to kind of move things forward. You know, to kind of take action, to speak your mind, to be honest, to be direct. You know, maybe why we've got this Two of Wands here. Okay, let's have one for the Sun. Oh, wonderful. So here we've got the bouquet. So in the Lenormand system, this is about kind of a gift, a lovely gesture. So it's possible that this Three of Cups is, you know, somebody who's close to your heart, kind of offering you a lovely gesture, something to sort of gladden your heart, which is wonderful, just to sort of cheer you up, bring you flowers, or, you know, something like that. Okay, then let's have one for the planets in your sign. So for Pluto, Sagittarius, and I mean Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. Yeah, definitely. So you've got the heart. So that definitely tells me that we are dealing with a bit of heartache here. This is what this devil energy is about. And then let's have one for Uranus. Oh, beautiful. So this is the clover, which in the Lenormand system is about luck. So it's about almost like the Wheel of Fortune, you know, a change of luck. So this is exactly what I think we were kind of getting through when we were talking about this lovely advice card here, and about Uranus. This is what I feel the gift of Uranus is at this particular full moon, is to take the spilt cup of love that you wanted to give to somebody else and give it to yourself. I think here is the silver lining of this particular situation. So a really quite a deep reading, Capricorn, but I think a very profound shift is kind of on the way for you. I know I haven't really got into things like love and career per se, but I feel as though this is more about an internal process, and I'm sure that in the readings that follow we can kind of get back into all that that wonderful kind of career energy that, you know, is something that you kind of live for. All I will say is you've got the Four of Pentacles here in your career place, so you know, it looks as though financial security is certainly on the cards. Just don't kind of grip too tightly to that, perhaps as a way to compensate for feelings of loss elsewhere, because you don't want to stop the flow of abundance. You know, it doesn't have to be limited to what you currently have. You can potentially open yourself up to something more, to sort of to more abundance, and that may also be why we've got the lovely Queen of Pentacles here in your third house. So yes, I hope this has been helpful. As I say, it's not going to resonate for everybody, but if it has, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this reading, please hit the like button. Thank you for all your likes, shares and subscribes, as well as your generous donations. I'm truly grateful for your support, and I hope you have a wonderful 2 weeks, and I'll catch you again in a fortnight.